Brooke. It's such a pleasure to have you here today on our Practice Growth series.
Hey, Marla. Always a pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Exxat.
Awesome. So my name is Brooke McIntosh. I'm the Director of Operations at Exxat. I am also a physical therapist, so it's kind of a fun spin to be a PT in the tech world, especially when we get to work with, lots of clinics and schools all across the country. So my role at Exxat is leading the Exxat One platform from the schools, students, and clinical side, where we're trying to bring all of those folks together in one place.
Great. And give me a high-level overview of Exxat One and what you're doing for universities and students.
Exxat One is a network that brings together clinical sites and schools where clinical sites have the ability to post their locations and their availabilities, and also tell schools a little bit about their clinics, what sets them apart, what kind of students they're looking for. Schools can then log into the platform. They can try to find clinical locations where their students are located or that meet their specialty needs, right? So there may not be a specialty location directly where that student, lives, but there may be one, close by that meets their specialty needs of what the kind of practice the student's looking for. The schools can submit their request for those clinical placements, and then the sites have the ability to go through and view, see, learn more about the student, learn more about the school, decide if it's a good match, approve or sometimes decline, which happens. And then students have the ability to complete all of their onboarding requirements for that clinical site all in one place. So we've really tried to create a one-stop shop connecting sites, students, and schools in one place.
Wow. So you guys really solved a big problem, because I know that when I was a student, or even just recently out there, very challenging to do those student placements and to coordinate all of the different pieces they have to do to place 40 to 50 students in every cohort.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what the experience used to be like, or if you're not using Exxat, what a Director of Clinical Education or DCE does in order to place students prior to Exxat One.
What used to happen, and what still happens with those who aren't using Exxat One, is that every single school in the country is keeping their own list of your clinic. So you're a clinical site and you have 100 locations, right? So schools are keeping their own records of your locations. Sometimes they are reaching out to say, hey, can you please update our list, right? Can you please let me know what new clinics you have, what specialties you have, where are you guys located? But if you can imagine from a clinical director side or, an owner side, that could be 100, 200 schools reaching out to you to ask you to update that information. And then, of course, there's the March 1st mailing where schools then, send a mass mailing out to all of the, sites across the country saying, hey, can you take one of our students next year? So they're asking for placements this year. It'll happen for 2026. And for, clinic directors and, owners, what's happening is they're saying, yeah, sure, we'd love to take a student. They don't know if that location will still be open, if they'll have the census to be able to take students. So it's kind of a guessing game right now in that space, because the miscommunication that can also sometimes happen there.
Great.
Yeah.
So they're really doing that via email.
Yes, it's happening. Emails, spreadsheets. And there's also change of hands too, which can happen often. So like those emails can also get lost, right? Spreadsheets are hard to keep updated because it's also, if we think from the site side, it's not always their, main job, right? Some of them have just raised their hands to say, sure, we'd love to take more students. How can I help? So really with Exxat One, what we have looked to do is to be able to streamline that process. We have in-app messaging. So if there is a change of hands, everyone on the admin side can see the communication that's happened back and forth with the schools. Same thing on the school side, right? Sometimes they have multiple people who are working on placements. And if it's just going to one person's inbox in one place, that communication can get lost. So really trying to create that streamlined process. Sites can keep their information up to date in our platform. Schools don't have to reach out and ask those questions. We'll talk a little sneak peek later about some of the integrations that we have. But sites can post that information in one place. Schools can immediately see it. All communication in one place. Also oversight of site-specific onboarding. In the past, what would happen is the match process happens in email or, through response to the March 1st mailing. And then a site would say, okay, we have requirements that a student has to complete to be able to rotate with us. And so then that communication happens between the site and the student. But if the site's not hearing back from the student, they end up reaching out to the school being like, hey, we haven't heard from Sarah, right? Can you please help us? And in Exxat One, the site and the school both have access to the student's onboarding. So everyone can kind of pitch in, have that oversight to make sure that students are doing what they're supposed to do so that they're ready to be able to rotate at that specific clinic.
So it's almost like a CRM for universities and for clinics.
Yeah.
Because clinics were doing it obviously through email and on spreadsheets as well. So it's a place where all of that information is kept in one spot.
Yep. all in one place. Also on the clinical site side, what we heard when we first launched this though. So we've been working with schools. We work with about 85% of the DPT programs that are out there today. Lots of PTA programs as well on our academic suite, which is different from Exxat One. They don't have to be users of our academic suite. Schools don't to be able to access Exxat One. But really, what we heard from them was like, hey, Exxat, you guys really figured it out for us, right? Like you understand our space. You can help us. What about our clinical partners? So that's, a couple of years back, we started meeting with clinical site partners to be like, hey, what are your guys' needs? Like, how can we help you manage, clinical education on your side, your relationships? So the Exxat One platform on the site side also allows for them to be able to manage their school contracts. They have like a mini, I don't want to call it CRM, but kind of communications tab where they can also track what job fairs did they go to, right? What students have they interacted with? Sometimes sites and schools have interactions that they want to document somewhere. And so we've also given them the place to be able to manage those relationships, not just the exchange of student placements.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Because we know contracts are just everywhere
all
and
the time.
Lost and in a Google Doc, but somebody new comes over and they don't know when they're updated. Whereas in Exxat, it actually alerts you when you need to redo the contract. Is that correct?
They're all in one place. So
fantastic.
Schools can also see on their side when they are searching in the Exxat platform, they can see if they have a contract with that site or not already. So it's a place too where they can manage relationships that they already have. Right? The sites they've been working with for years, but really streamlining the process, but also being able to discover new sites, right? We've also seen that a bunch of, schools have turned to a hybrid model. So in traditional brick and mortar programs, right, they were really used to, they being schools, were really used to using the same sites over and over, right? The ones in an hour radius that their students could just drive to because their students live there. But now their students coming from all 50 states. And so you don't know from the school side when you're getting a new cohort, you may have students in areas where you have 0 clinical contracts. So another really cool thing about Exxat One is they can log in. They can see across today, we have a little over 6,000 and lots trying to onboard before March 1st, which has been a lot of fun too. But they can log in and they can see which locations are available, where their students actually live, where they are in these hybrid programs, keeping those students closer to home in the places that they're going to want to have jobs. Right? That's where they're going to work. So reducing, some of the difficulties on students with finding, somewhere to live, paying, to go and live somewhere for 8 weeks, Airbnb, whatever that may be. And then also, helping them career-wise, hopefully as well.
Great. And walk me through this. So I am a university. I can go on to Exxat One. Mm-hmm. I can search by zip code or clinic name or specialty.
Yep, by specialties as well. Yep.
Great.
We have a global list too. So we have a global list of inpatient and outpatient specialties so that, someone's not calling it Jerry and someone else is calling it geriatrics and someone else is calling it older adult. We've really tried to create a global place, trying to make it easy for people to really be able to find exactly what fits the needs of their students.
Great. Yeah. And then I can see a clinic and see if I'm partnered with them or not.
Correct.
Because there's like a handshake.
Yep. There's a little handshake icon and everyone wants the handshake icon. No one wants the FOMO of not being contracted with the sites that they're seeing, which has also been a lot of fun helping, to create some of those new connections. But yes.
So if I don't have a handshake, I can actually, through Exxat One, reach out to that clinic to create a contract?
Yep. So you can reach out and say, hey, I've found a location that's it looks like it's a really great fit for my student. Can you, first of all, can you take my student? And if they say yes, then you could also have the communication directly in the platform of what are the next steps for, being able to set up an affiliation agreement. We don't have the ability for them to actually set it up through the platform just yet, but at least the conversations can start there in the platform.
Great. And when you say that you can request what are next, that I want a clinical affiliation, it's a click of a button saying I would like a student in this clinic?
Yes. So what's also really cool is information that you would have taken and had to, type out in an email or been really specific about. The clinical sites are actually able to pick some custom fields as well. Like, do you want to know which rotation number it is of the students? Do you want to know what semester they're in? Do you want to know how many hours they're expected to be here? So clinical sites can customize. Of course, our defaults are how many students do you want? What's the date range that they're, going to be rotating with us? And then schools can pick from the disciplines and specialties that you've made available as a clinic, which also stops them from asking for peds. If you don't have peds, right? So really keeping that information fresh. Schools input that information directly into the system and they hit request. And then it auto-populates on the clinical site side where they can take a step back and they can review all the requests that come through. Instead of getting 15 emails and then trying to drop those into spreadsheets and then reaching out, hey, we have this request, can you take the student? It puts all of the requests in one place so that you can go through, you can, review profiles of students if schools have shared that information with you and really make the best fit for your clinic.
Great. So the schools can see about the clinics. They can read all about it. They know the specialties. They can read what the clinic has put kind of their front door right on that site. So they know if it's a good fit for that university. And then the clinics have insight into if that student's a first or second or third year. So they can accept or deny it if they need to. So they know actually what kind of student they're going to get.
Correct. Yep. Okay. And each site has the ability to, like I said, to kind of customize some of those questions. So if you don't really care what rotation number it is for a student, we always ask for the graduation date, the expected graduation date of that student, which kind of gives you a ballpark. So no matter what, you get that information. But if there's, if the rotation number is really important to you or their semester is really important to you, as a clinical site, you can ask for that as a mandatory field in the request process.
Great. And then I'm now a clinic. I see it. I actually confirm it because I'm excited to get this student. I know the dates. I know the year of the student. Now I can do the onboarding through Exxat as well?
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So dad jokes are free today only. So they have the ability, they being the site partners, to say, to come to our company, these are the requirements that a student has to fulfill. So after the student has been, thumbs up from the clinical site, the school inputs the student information and says, hey, this is the student we want to confirm at this location. Student logs in and they get to complete all of their onboarding in one place. You can say from the site level to come to our parent company, these are all the requirements. Also, if you have a one-off location that also has specific requirements for a student.
Like an interview?
You could have an interview.
Okay.
Some have specific background checks that need to be done to come to that location. Others have, if you're working with kids, maybe you have a different privacy policy or whatever it may look like. You can also have location-specific requirements that a student has to complete before they can rotate. It's really cool because you can literally see as students are completing it, sites can see it, and schools can see it as they become compliant. And say, because it does happen, a student's running a little behind on getting their things done, the site or the school can direct message that student and say, hey, like your placement's coming up in a couple of weeks. They're getting automated reminders through the system, but if they're not responding to those, you can also directly message the student saying like, hey, we're so excited to have you. Please get in and get your onboarding requirements.
Great. So I'm keeping track of all of my information with the university, but I'm also keeping track of all of the students' information as a clinic owner or a clinic RSCCE. And I can see all of that in Exxat One.
Correct.
Know which students are coming. Know how many I have confirmed, and be able to increase my ability to get more students?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, right? So having a platform like Exxat One really creates a space for scalable operations, right? If you're spending less time in spreadsheets, right, the hopes is that you can respond to requests faster. You have them all in one place. You know your capacity on the back end. You're able to communicate with your clinics and say like, hey, we got 3 requests for March of next year. Do we have 3 people who can actually take these students? And if you don't have it for that year, you have the data for the next year to say, hey, in this market, we really tend to get a lot of requests for March. What can we do clinic-wise to kind of free up some space for some more clinical instructors here so that we can take more students? So really, trying to help be able to scale, those operations. Schools can also always see what's available. So if you no longer have an availability at clinic, you can just take it off the network. That's no problem. But hopefully, long gone are the days to where everyone feels like they have to request, all of these placements at one point because availabilities are open all year round because sites want to take students. Like that's not the problem, at least from what we hear. It may be a problem for some, but not for what we hear. And if they have, a platform like Exxat One to where they can organize all of that information, they do have the ability to take more students.
Great. Well, give me an example of a university that is using Exxat One and just what their process change looks like and what the testimonial feedback they gave you.
Absolutely. So I didn't get permission to use anyone's name, but I have a school partner who calls Exxat One the Google of PT clinical education.
Oh.
Yeah, she told me that she was like, if I need a placement, I log on to Exxat One and I search by the student zip code and I'm finding a placement for them instead of having to go to Google and read the review. Because in the minds of some of the schools that I've talked to, anyone who has taken the time to really put the effort into clinical education by using a platform like Exxat One really cares about students. They want to take them, they want to foster those relationships. They're trying to get their information out there. So don't quote us, but like it's okay to feel like we're the Google of PT clinical education. We like that.
I love that. And give me an example of a clinic that is using Exxat One and potentially how many increased placements did they get or time savings was it for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's been interesting. So we're a year into this, right? So last year the requests were made for 2025. So we're like a month and a half into them actually being able to take those students so far. But anecdotally, we're getting a lot of really positive feedback about a couple of things. One, the ability to take more students, of course. Two is also the ability to connect with schools that before they had a hard time getting in touch with. Because again, they were like, hey, have you heard of all of our clinics in these different locations? Sending those spreadsheets to the school. And if the school didn't have the time to be able to input those or be able to share that information out, sometimes it gets lost, right? So being able to, again, have all of that information in one place from what our site partners have said has been extremely helpful. Also the onboarding process. They have one place to see, okay, these are the students that are coming at this, from this date to this date. This is their clinical instructor. This is the location they're going to. Oh, and they're compliant. They're ready to hit the ground running. So instead of having to do some of that stuff on day one when the student comes in, students are already scared, right? They're already a little nervous. Not all of them. Some are confident, but a lot of them, are coming in, their eyes are already wide. And then you're like, here, sign your name 15 times, right? So being able to like slowly get those, students acclimated to your clinic, what to expect, being able to do that in advance is also a really cool feature.
Great. And I have heard some of the, let's say, negative feedback, right, is that universities are saying, well, Exxat Prism doesn't talk to Exxat One. I have all my information in Exxat Prism. Now I've got to put it in Exxat One. Can you tell me a little bit about that and potentially how you guys are solving that?
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully no more of that feedback because actually this week we launched an integration between Prism and Exxat One. So yay. Thank you to my product team. So we're super excited about it because what it allows for is for schools to see all of the locations and all of the sites that are in Exxat One on the Prism side.
Oh, that's great.
But the first thing people were like, don't override my data. And I was like, I have no business overriding your data. I'm not interested. So we've actually created a link. So if, a clinic or a company calls their locations, whatever their naming convention is, and a school has called them something else, they still have the ability to link those locations without overriding that data. So they do have the ability to see other locations that maybe the school didn't have in Prism, and with a click of a button, they can add them into their Prism instance. So we're really providing all of the information that the sites are making available to the schools, and then their ability to decide how they're going to add those into Prism or not.
Great. That is music to my ears.
Yeah.
What about the clinical placements that are in Exxat One? Are they also in Exxat Prism, or are we still working on that?
They are on their way. So that will also be launching next week ahead of March 1st mailing.
Great.
Where, again, looking at my product team, we're so excited. We're so grateful. But they will also now be able to see on the Prism side, they'll be able to see the slots that were accepted in Exxat One will flow over into Prism. They'll be able to choose, every school is set up different, right? So we have given them the flexibility to decide, which rotations they're going to add those placements to, which courses are those tied to. So they'll be able to see them all in one streamlined place. So you heard it here first.
Oh my goodness. I'm so happy. Universities are going to be just off their rocker happy about that.
Yep, we're so excited.
So now tell me a little bit more about your partnership with Prompt.
So we are super, super excited about our relationship with Prompt because when we first talked, you and I, about, the potential of partnership, it seemed it was like a dream come true for me, because our goal is to have as many high quality clinics on our platform as humanly possible. And you guys have a lot of really high quality clinics to offer up. So we, from the Exxat side, had immediate access to, big enterprise level clinics, as well as, some of the smaller clinics that are in, maybe more rural areas, but still offer a really, really high quality experience. And we have the ability to now be able to make those offered up to our different school partners.
Fantastic. Yeah. And in the platform, are universities and students able to search and see which clinics use prompt?
They sure can. So in the sidebar, they could actually type in prompt, because each one of the prompt clinics have prompt in their naming convention. So if they are familiar with prompt and they feel really comfortable with their relationship with prompt, and they want to, get more clinics that are in kind of like-minded, they can just search prompt, and the entire list that have prompt in their naming convention will come up.
And I would say probably one of the barriers to clinics being able to use Exxat was finance and economics, right?
It comes at a cost.
So tell me a little bit about that, how much your platform costs and who's got the cost, and then tell me about the relationship with prompt and how that's being solved.
Yeah, absolutely. So, definitely a barrier for some of the smaller clinics, right? And some of the largers that may not have been budgeted for, a platform, but they all have the same issues, right? Is scalability in clinical placements and wanting to take more students. So the ability to come onto Exxat One comes with an onboarding fee, as well as a $20 per student per placement fee. The vast majority of our site partners have chosen to take on that fee in the PT space. But again, it's not scalable for everyone, right? It's not an option for everyone. And we're so grateful, and hopefully the clinics are too, that Prompt has actually decided to cover those fees for all of their partner clinics, and have been able to give them access to Exxat One, and then being able to share that out with the schools as well. We've actually gotten a couple of emails from schools they're like, thank you, Prompt, for bringing all of these locations on, partnerships new and old for them, and covering that cost for students, because the only other option for some of these clinics was to pass that cost on to the student. So either they could pick it up or they could pass it on to the student. And now with the partnership with Prompt, they're not having to choose either of those things. So we're really grateful. So I'm going to kind of flip the question on you, Marla. So we get the question of like, hey, we're so excited about this partnership. We hear it from sites and from schools. Why did Prompt choose to start the student initiative and to cover this cost for clinical sites?
That's a great question. And I actually get that all the time too. It's almost like too good to be true. Well, Prompt really considers themselves more than a technology. We are their practice growth platform. So we are invested in any clinic that uses us. We are invested in growing and making sure that they are as successful as can be through technology, and even through just our customer success managers, who are all clinicians, PTs, OT, speech, helping guide our clinics and make sure that they're using the right business processes and they're using the technology to grow their practice. So as we talk to all of our clinics and ask them, what is your biggest pain point right now? Because we're solving a ton of them technology-wise. They kept saying recruiting. We need more clinicians to grow. And we don't need more patients. We need more clinicians to satisfy the patients. And so with that, we really said, we want to be able to get more students into our clinics, and we want them to grow and have that opportunity. And we look at our partnership with Exxat as a wonderful way to do that, putting our clinics up on Exxat and helping them be connected to universities and have a seamless capability to get students in the clinic. They're going to grow.
Yeah.
And that helps us grow.
Absolutely.
And it also just feels good to be able to give back to the universities and the students. We know how valuable it is to have that mentorship, to have that clinical affiliation. And we encourage all of our clinics to be able to give those clinical affiliations. So giving back, but also being able to have that almost best interview process where they are 6 to 8 weeks in a clinic. They know if they want to work there or not. And it's the best way that our clinics can continue to grow and have the right fit for their clinic.
Yeah, I love that. So that kind of thought partnership, I think, is so special at Prompt. You guys are really, in any interaction that you and I have had, you're really trying to put your partners first, what's best for them. Even when we're talking about the product itself, you're thinking in the back of your mind, because I always hear it come out in our meetings of like, what else can we be doing for our clinic partners? And I just think that's super special. I don't know of another EMR that treats their clients the way that you guys do, and being a thought partner like that. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. We're excited to be able to, as we said, we're all clinicians, and that's what drives, is really being able to help the industry and make sure that we are giving good value aside from the technology.
So I know that you guys have thousands and thousands of clinics that use Prompt. How do you choose who gets access to Exxat One?
That's a great question. And we actually did have a requirements and a process for them to actually opt in and be accepted into the Exxat One platform on our end. And we did that because we talked to universities and we said, what are you guys looking for when having a good partner clinic? And how can we make sure that we have the right clinics on the platform for you? So some of our requirements are that they have taken a student before, they have one-on-one mentorship, they have at least more than one clinician in the facility. If not, there's a local clinic nearby with another clinician
that they could partner up with if someone was out.
If someone was out.
That's awesome.
That it's not a pop. We don't want any, physician-owned practices. We want it to be, really about these PTs and OTs and so forth. We also are making sure they have an NPS score greater than 90, which is that net promoter score, so that we know these clinics are actually giving really good quality care and that they're using our full suite of tools. We want to put our best foot forward. So we are choosing the clinics that are using our AI and our online scheduling and all of our tools so that these students and universities are seeing what's out there and what is possible in the PT industry. So with those qualifications, we've been able to say, do you have CCIP certified clinicians? And we're also asking our clinics to make sure that they only put that they're a specialty provider if they truly have a specialty certification in that area, or they see more than 70% of the patient caseload. So being thoughtful on our end about what clinics are on there representing Prompt to be able to good partners for the universities and make the universities feel comfortable that they can go search Prompt and make a relationship with a clinic that is a Prompt clinic.
Yeah, that's awesome. And all of the clinics that you guys have connected us with have been fantastic. They are so passionate about taking students. They're logging in. They're always trying to make sure that their information is up to date. And I think that's something really special. And that kind of, comes from, I think, a lot of the communications that you've had back and forth with them about how important it is, to share the right information out with schools so that schools are really making a choice that fits, best for their student and for their needs.
We appreciate doing that. And we're excited to watch this process and to get more clinics up and running. Hopefully, they're all making those availabilities live before, the March mailer, but it's a rolling process. So we're excited to see them start to make those connections and get more students in the door and be able to give back to the student community as well.
Absolutely. We're excited about it too.
What else is coming from Exxat? What's on the roadmap? What can we expect?
Yeah. So the integration was a big piece, right? So step one, the integration between Prism and Exxat One on the location side. Next will come the slots. So again, you guys got the sneak peek here about the slot availability being live in Prism. I can't give too much away, but I'll hint at a few things. So we'll have a calendar feature that will come. So if at any point in time you want to look, ahead and see on a calendar, what students you have already signed up for, you want to share that out with your different clinic owners, you'll be able to do that. We will also be introducing a talent portal. So jobs, again, can't talk too much about it just yet, but stay tuned for more on that, because we're better to, be able to recruit students than where they're doing their rotations, just like what we've talked about before. But just because a student is placed at one location, doesn't mean that that's necessarily going to be, where they're going to live forever. So also being able to share that information out about all of the different opportunities that these clinics have for student placements. Something that we're having a lot of fun with right now, roadmap-wise, is that we have such personal relationships relationships with all of our schools and all of our sites. We do our onboarding of all of them. So we meet with every single partner who's coming on board to show them how to use the platform. Same thing on the school side. If a school ever has questions or, needs help with being able to navigate the platform, there's a real human. We have lots of tools, right? Help guides, and we have an AI, help center, stuff like that. But we also have real humans that are interacting with these folks. So, so just really super, streamlined process across the board. But, our roadmap changes based off of the needs of our users. So we're really excited to see, what feedback we continue to get so that we can continue to build a robust platform that is actually meeting the needs of our customers, not just what like in our brain that we're excited about, but, that we're taking that feedback and we're able to implement it as well.
Oh, well, I'm really excited about this roadmap and to see what's coming. And obviously to be able to offer that to our clinics and to be able to offer the universities that connectivity. So thank you for all of you guys and what you're doing at Exxat.
Yeah, and thank you guys for your partnership as well. Again, just the beginning of the platform and our relationship. And so we're really looking forward to, the rest of 2025 and beyond.
So another fear or concern I've heard from both sides, universities and clinics, is that they know how important the relationship is in this clinical affiliation and process of placing students. And they're a little afraid technology is going to remove that. Can you tell us or give us just your feedback on what your technology is doing and how that may or may not affect the relationships created and built or needing to be built?
Yeah, if anything, I feel like a platform like Exxat One is improving those relationships and the communication. Schools have the ability to see in real time all of the locations that are available for that company. They can message back and forth, in real time. We have, in-app messaging as it relates specifically to that placement, right, to that student. And then that communication never gets lost, right? So if anything, we're improving, those relationships because of improved communication and visibility, right, on both sides. So we're not going like, hey, did I ever respond to you about that? Like, I'm so sorry, right? So lost emails aren't happening because everyone can see in real time in the platform what's available, what we have promised, right, and what we need to be able to follow up on.
Yeah, and at any point in time, they have the number so they can still pick up the phone and call that DCE?
Of course they could, but the hopes is that the majority of the platform is really set up for success, right? Setting them up for success, where all the information that they need is still there, but everyone, of course, is only a phone call away. But everyone's busy too, right? So trying to keep as much information. Technology helps us, right? It doesn't have to be something that we fight, which, change is also hard, right? We understand that. But, having all of that information, again, in one place really should just streamline the majority of those conversations. And then we can have, the detailed conversations about, pushing the profession forward and making sure that students are taken care of offline.
And we really feel the same way that technology is assisting human connections. It's actually helping. It's not deterring and done in the right way. And with our clinics that we've added up onto the Exxat One platform, we continue to tell them we are the platform that's helping them do it. We are helping onboard them, but they are still the ones creating that relationship with the university, creating that connectivity, and making sure that they are constantly communicating about the student and the student's affiliation so the universities feel comfortable and vice versa.
They are still each other's number one contact, right? So we're not trying to get in the middle of, those things or stop any collaboration. If anything, again, we want them to be able to take care of the student placement piece all in one place. And then, to be able to continue to foster those relationships, because the clinics that you guys are bringing on are so unique, right? They're all different. So it's not like a one size fits all, because each schools need a variety of different clinical opportunities, right? Different clinic locations, different specialties to really meet the needs of their students. So we've talked a lot about what you guys are doing on the clinical side, but I've heard a lot of buzz about your relationships on the university side. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So another pain point that we saw in the industry was that students were coming to clinical affiliations and not knowing how to use EMRs at all or documentation. That was kind of like a weak area. And they were taking the first 2 weeks just to learn how to use an EMR and get comfortable with it instead of focusing on patient care. In addition, we also heard that in the curriculum, they're using Word documents to teach SOAP notes and Documentation. And we are in 2025.
Sometimes even writing them. I have heard from some schools that or students that the schools have them handwriting their SOAP notes. What clinician is handwriting SOAP notes? I hope none.
I hope not. So with that, we decided to do a pro bono initiative where we are offering our EMR complimentary to universities as a learning tool that they can use in their curriculum to teach these students documentation, CPT coding, home exercise program, in addition to their pro bono clinics. So now
awesome.
Those universities are able to use Prompt, and the students are able to get exposure. They use it differently for each class. They can add different types and pieces, and maybe by third year expose them to the AI that we have in the platform as well, so that they come out ready for their clinical affiliation and really ready when they go out into the workforce to be able to have that real life experience.
That is so cool. I'm sure from a school, right, that is such invaluable experience for a student. And then, if a student's going to a clinic that's using Prompt, they're also all ready to hit the ground running on day one.
Absolutely. And really any EMR, at least they have the experience. So we think it's going to help them tremendously. But we do think they're going to want to choose a Prompt clinic at the end of the day because of how great the EMR is.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Well, Brooke, it's been a pleasure to have you on this and to hear all about Exxat and to hear what we are doing together and where the future is going to take us. Yeah. So excited to be able to continue to follow that and to continue to grow this relationship.
Thanks so much for having me on here and for being my teammate and kind of being able to push all this forward. So we're really looking forward to, like I said, what's next for Exxat One, what's next for our relationship with Prompt, as well as together what we can do for clinical education and streamlining the process for everyone involved.